are watching is not just slicing. It is the final proof that everything upstream stayed under control. A single pepperoni log hits the cutter. The blade spins, and perfect red discs fall like a metronome onto stainless conveyor rails. That clean pattern you see in every slice, the deep red lean, and the pale specks of fat, comes from cold, chain discipline, exact ratios, and time, managed fermentation, and drying. In the next 25 minutes we are going to trace this product backward and forward, from the farm to the refrigerated truck, through the raw room, into the fermentation chambers and smokehouses, and finally back here, where the line seals every pack with a tight edge that is built to survive shipping and storage. This is not gossip or scandal. Exposed means transparent. It means you can finally see why pepperoni is always smoky, always consistent, and always shelf-ready at industrial scale. Before any machine touches meat, the first layer of consistency begins at the farm. In modern supply chains, the goal is stability, stable feed, stable water, clean housing, and predictable conditions that make raw material behave the same way, batch after batch. That is why you will see traceability systems long before you see a grinder. Lots are separated, cold rooms are pre-cooled, and transport is scheduled so time at the dock is short. Pepperoni is unforgiving when temperature drifts, because fat texture changes first. And once fat smears, you lose that clean slice pattern later. So the farm side, it is not just agriculture, it is preparation for an industrial process that demands repeatable structure. From here the story moves into the cold chain, where the product's quality is protected by doors, seals, and time. The cold chain is the invisible backbone of everything that comes next. Refrigerated transport is not just a cold box on wheels. It is a controlled corridor that keeps raw material within a narrow window so texture stays firm and microbial growth stays limited. At the receiving dock, sealed doors and chilled air curtains reduce warm air intrusion, and the transfer is designed to be fast, clean, and one-directional. What matters here is not drama, it is the absence of surprises. When temperature spikes, you do not just risk shelf life. You change how the meat grinds, how the fat holds shape, how the mix binds, and how the final pepperoni slices. This is why the line looks almost boring when it is done well. The system is built so nothing interesting happens, because interesting usually means something went wrong. Inside the raw room, the factory starts turning chilled meat into measurable building blocks. The line breaks large pieces down into uniform cubes, then separates lean and fat, so the final blend is decided by scales, not by feel. That ratio is the foundation of pepperoni's bite. Too lean and it becomes dry and tough. Too much fat and it turns greasy, soft, and unstable in the slicer. Everything you see here is designed for repeatability, clean stainless surfaces, low temperatures to keep fat firm, and controlled flow from one hopper to the next. Even before seasonings appear, the process is already shaping the final eating experience. Pepperoni is not simply seasoned meat. It is engineered texture, and engineered behavior under heat, and it begins with a raw, room workflow that treats every gram like it matters. Now the signature color and aroma start to take shape, and this is where people usually imagine a secret. The reality is less mysterious and more precise. Spices are dosed consistently, the curing blend is added in controlled amounts, and the mixer seals shut so the environment stays clean, and the distribution stays uniform. Paprika gives warmth and visual depth. Garlic and pepper build the backbone. And the cure supports the classic cured character people associate with pepperoni. The goal is not to overwhelm the meat. The goal is to create a stable flavor system that can survive fermentation, smoking, and drying without drifting from batch to batch. When the mixer turns under vacuum, it removes trapped air and builds a dense, cohesive mass that will stuff cleanly into casing and later slice into perfect discs without tearing or smearing. Pepperoni becomes pepperoni because time is allowed to work in a controlled direction. This is the fermentation step, and it is both flavor and process control. Starter culture is introduced, so acidity develops predictably, giving pepperoni that gentle tang, and helping push the product towards stability. The factory does not rely on chance microbes. It uses a planned culture, so the timeline can be managed, the conditions can be tuned, and the results can be repeated. You will notice that everything still stays cold and clean, because the line is preparing the mixture to become a uniform cylinder. The shape is not cosmetic. A consistent diameter and density are what make airflow even later in fermentation and drying, and airflow uniformity is what prevents sections from going too fast or too slow. The better the control here, the cleaner the finish later. Stuffing is the moment the product becomes a form the factory can guide through rooms, racks, and time. The casing feeds smoothly, the meat mixture presses in under steady pressure, and clips lock each end into a sealed, standardized log. Uniform length and uniform diameter matter, because the next stages depend on even airflow and even heat transfer. Logs are spaced on racks so they do not touch, because contact points can create uneven drying and uneven surface character. In a well-run line, you can feel the logic everywhere. Nothing is placed randomly. Everything is set up to make the next room easier to control. When the racks roll toward the fermentation chambers, you are not just moving product. You are moving a system into a controlled environment, where flavor will be built by humidity, temperature, and time. In the fermentation room, the factory slows down and becomes patient. This is a controlled climate space, where humidity and temperature guide the starter culture's pace. Too cold, and the culture slows, leaving the product underdeveloped. Too warm and the fermentation can run ahead, pushing flavor too sharp and making control harder. What looks like just hanging sausages is actually a carefully managed stage that sets the tone for everything after it. The air moves evenly through the racks, the product stays separated for uniform exposure, and the timeline is monitored so the batch exits the room at the right moment, not when it is convenient. The reason this matters will become obvious once you see smoking and drying. Fermentation is the quiet foundation. If it is off, the rest of the process becomes compensation instead of progression. When fermentation reaches its target, the product moves forward on schedule, and the factory protects that momentum with strict separation between zones. Doors, air curtains, and one-way flow exist so the batch does not drift backward or pick up unwanted exposure. The system is built around transitions. Each room is a different tool: fermentation for acidity and direction, smoking for aroma and surface character, drying for stability, and chilling for slicer performance. This minute is about the handoff. The racks roll out of one controlled environment into another. And the process does not pause to see how it feels. It follows a plan designed to deliver the same outcome every time. Next, you are going to see the moment the product starts smelling like pepperoni, in the way most people recognize instantly. Smoking is where aroma becomes identity. Inside the smokehouse, airflow and smoke density are controlled so the casing darkens evenly, and the surface develops the character people associate with cured, smoky pepperoni. This is not a campfire vibe. It is engineered. Too much smoke, too thick, too stagnant, and the surface can become harsh and uneven. Too little, and the batch lacks the signature profile. Heat is applied carefully, because the goal is not to cook the product like a hot dog. The goal is to shape the exterior and support the progression toward a semi-dry texture. By the time racks exit the smokehouse, the logs look deeper in color, more confident in shape, and more ready for the step that truly decides shelf stability. Because smelling right is not the same as being stable. Drying is where pepperoni earns its professional behavior. The factory reduces moisture in a controlled way, so the product becomes semi-dry, firm enough to slice cleanly and stable enough to hold quality over time. This is not about making it hard. It is about hitting a target texture and a target water availability, so the product does not behave like fresh meat anymore. Airflow matters, spacing matters, and the timeline matters, because uneven drying creates uneven texture and uneven performance in slicing and eating. You can see the change visually as the surface becomes less glossy and the log holds its shape with more confidence. And once that structure is built, the factory makes one more move that turns good pepperoni into perfect pepperoni at the slicer: deep chilling. Chilling is a performance upgrade for precision slicing. When the log's temperature drops, fat firms up just enough to cut clean.